everyone. My name is Cheryl. Welcome to my Happy Handcraft Studio. It's St. Patrick's Day, and this might not look too green on camera, but it's got a touch of the gold, so I feel very festive. So for people new to my channel, I live in the foothills of Alberta, near Calgary, Alberta, and I am a maker. I make all types of items in all kinds of media, and this is a FlossTube channel, so I always start with my cross-stitch projects and what I've been working on. Today I'm also going to be sharing with you some of my knitting, crochet, bag making, and some books that I've just finished. So I hope some of those things are of interest to you. In the description box below, I list all of the patterns, materials that I've used. And if you ever have any questions, just leave a comment and I'd be happy to get back to you. So one of the questions that I had from my last episode was if I knew other FlossTubers or YouTubers who did many different handcrafts. So I was thinking about who I watch that does, other things besides cross stitch. And so Pumpkin Huddle Quilts, Olivia does quilting, cross stitch, and she also seasonally makes some sort of smaller stuffed pumpkins and birds and that kind of thing. And Elizabeth Ann Can Stitch, she does cross stitch, quilting, and some bag making. And then my fellow Canadian, who does as many different handcrafts as I do, is Jenn M Bowman. And she does cross stitch, crochet, wool applique, and quilting. So check her out. I'll list all of those different FlossTubers down below. And if you know of other YouTubers who show multi-crafts, like many different kinds of makes, I'd love to know about them because, that's where my interest is. We have to make all the things. So, March Madness, that was the theme for my cross-stitching for the beginning of this month. And I took part in Steel City Stitchers' March Stitchy Madness, where we had a bracket that we started with 8 projects and ended up with 1 at the end. And many of you voted on Instagram. Thank you for helping me decide which projects would go through. So the first pairing was Chocolate Bunny by Teresa Gil. This was in Punch Needle and Primitive Stitcher magazine 2020 spring. This is on a 32 count chocolate raspberry linen. So that one went up against Garden Sampler. So Garden Sampler was a free project on Herscheners. And this was the winner of that round, and so I did stitch on it again before everything was determined. The next bracket was 'Tis the Season And 'Tis the Season is sub Rosa Designs, and this was in Punch Needle and Primitive Stitcher magazine, Christmas Winter 2021. And it was on a 28 count even weave in mushroom. So I have just a band of holly leaves to go down the side, and that one will be finished. So it was up against Pumpkin Alphabet. And Pumpkin Alphabet is by With Thy Needle and Thread. It's on a 14 count Aida. And this one was the one that people voted to go through from that round, and I was able to finish it. Now I have to think about what will be my next project for library stitching. We have stitching at the library tomorrow that Judy, the city stitcher, organizes. It is at the Signal Hill Library. Anyone is welcome. Please come, whether you're planning on stitching or not. If you just want to come and visit with us, that's fine. 9:30 until 12:30. Drop in anytime. It'd be great to see you. So because I don't want to take magnification there, I'm going to have to find another kind of large Aida project that I can take with me. So this is now into my finish it pile. In the next bracket, I had 2 Prairie Schooler Santas. And it shows this one here. And this one. So it was Santa 2006, that's this one, that moved on. And this one, these are both done in 18 count putty khaki by Zweigart. And I have one already finished in the series, and then I have 2 more with starts. And then the final matchup was Uology by Satsuma Street. And I had number 2 and number 3. And number 2 won the whole battle. It went up against the Santa 2006 with the sewing machine, and then finally it went up against Garden Sampler before it was the winner. So this is the one that I need to fully finish by the end of March. Which will be great. So just a closer look at the bracket and how it all played out. I really thought that Garden Sampler might have gone through, but it's fine. They're all a bit closer to being finished. Pumpkin Alphabet is done, and for sure I'll get Uology number 2 completed this month. So it was great, and it's also fun to have people vote on my projects and then to vote on other people's. It was great to kind of have a say in what people were stitching. So that was fun. So that was March Madness by the Steel City Stitchers. And then I had some of my regular stitching. I have my November the 11th, Remember November stitch that I work on the 11th of the month. This is MarNic Designs. And this is on a 28 count Monaco. These stitches are being done 2/2, and these are being done 1/1. So I'm making good progress, you know, a few more 11ths of the month. And I also have it in some other challenges, just getting 300 stitches a month in. So I hope to see that one continue to progress. And then I have my Queen Elizabeth II in Her Coronation Dress. This one I work on the 6th of the month and the 21st of the month. The day she became queen and the day she was born. And this time it was in this back area that I was working. So that's fun to see how it grows. This one is done on a 28 count Vintage Blue Cashel using the called for threads. And this is a big project that I'm working on, Hoity Toity by Long Dog Sampler. I'm using the called for thread colors, and this is on a 32 count antique white Lugana. I love this. It's growing. So hopefully in the next few months there'll be challenges where that can get a lot more progress. And then another really big project that you saw that I brought back last month, and that is Changing Seasons by Fox and Rabbit Designs. This was their 2022 mystery sale, and I'm doing it on a 32 count Belfast natural. And so now I'm just working to complete the border. This one is 360 by 360, so there's a lot of border. But it's fun. It's fun to just work on one color and put in a lot of stitches. So I did have some fully finishes this month. It's great to have a couple from the pile completely finished up. So last year I worked on Temperature Library by Kristie's Corner. And that was this piece here. And this was really fun. I put in some special events. And I've made this into a really long bag so that I can fit this into. And you're going to laugh because, yes, I used orange. I got tired of orange on this. But when I laid it against fabric that I had, you know, orange was the perfect color. And then inside is a really pretty print. So nice to have a really big bag like that. My final fully finish for March, and I love this, is Labyrinth the Owl. This was a free pattern by the Little Stitcher. It's on a natural colored linen. It was a piece from my stash. I'm not really sure what it was. But to finish this, I used some pearl beads. And if you've followed me before, you know how I like to put in family pieces into my stitching. And so my mom had this pearl necklace. It was just costume jewelry that I'd kept. And I took a strand of it and put the beads around here. And I hope to use beads, the pearls, in some other stitches as well for my Christmas tree. This one wouldn't have to be Christmas. It's just a beautiful little piece. Love it. That feels really good when something turns out so nicely. So that was the stitching for the beginning of March, and it was fun. It wasn't a really heavy duty stitching. I didn't put a ton of stitches in, but now to the end of March, I am going to work on Oology so that I can fully finish it. Garden Sampler is getting really close. 'Tis the season. I'd like to finish up several projects. I don't have any new starts in mind except for something for library stitching. So I'll look at that today and see what will work. I really want to work on changing seasons and hoity-toity, get lots of stitches into those. So that is my cross stitching. So my temperature blanket is coming along. If you've been watching, you know I'm always so happy when there's some purple coming up. Purple is cold weather, but I like purple. But you know, you have to be careful what you wish for, because this means like there were 6 days in a row where our high was, it would have been like -11. So it's coming, it's interesting, it's fun. I'm already starting to think about what's going to happen now that the weather's getting warmer. There's a lot more greens involved. So color-wise, temperature-wise, I know that the most common high temperature that we've had since January was between 1 to 5 degrees Celsius. That is this color called Arctic. And I've used up 1 ball of this so far. So I know that this was the most common color and temperature. The light blue that is the temperature right below, which is 0 to -5 to 0, and the sage 6 to 10. These are the 3 colors that I've used the most so far. So I'm really hoping to get up into these greens in the next few weeks. It would be great. Spring will come. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is my knitting. So I've really been doing a lot of knitting in the last while, and it's all because of this sweater. This is the No Frill sweater by Petite Knits, and I started this 2 years ago, I would say. And then for some reason I stopped. I can't even really remember the reason. If it was because it became summer and you don't want to knit in the summer, I'm not sure. I also know I was concerned about running out of yarn. So this yarn is Giselle Erin by Sirdar. And this is a vintage yarn. I picked it up at a fabric and yarn sale that the Ujamagrammas hold. And I got it a couple of years ago, and it was, I don't know, 5 or 10 years old already by the time I got it. So there's no opportunity to get any more. So what I did was I had the body done to about here. I did both sleeves. And then what I did, if you can see just here, since it was already striping, I took a navy yarn and alternated a row of the plain navy and a row of the variegated. And I'm happy. I think it looks just great. So I have my knitting bug back again. So I started to look through my knitting supplies, which I hadn't looked through for 3 years, I guess. And because I did this sweater, I want to do a color work sweater, you know, with lots of different motifs going around the yoke. But I want to practice that first before I start a sweater. So I found a hat pattern, and this is called the Snowflake Couple Beanie, and it's on a free pattern on Pearl Soho site. It's Make It Magical. So I had this yarn in my stash, and made this one. And then because it's half and half, I made this one. And then when I was done the two hats, all of the yarn I had left was just enough to make that beanie. So I have two hats, and these will go to our Bags, Babies, and Beyond handcraft sale in October that the Ujamagramas hold. So I got two hats done. And then I'm going through all my yarn bags, and I see another hat that needed to be finished. And this is called the March Hat. March Hat by Megan Babin. And if you go on Ravelry, it's there. This one has a really nice kind of a slouch to it. So again, another hat for our charity sale. So then I started to work on bags. And I think I might have shown this bag last time. This is the Ready Set yarn bag. That's a pattern from the Ujama baguettes. I made another one, and I love this one. This one is a sort of a suede fabric with this folk art print, and it has a nice white inside, so you can really see your yarn. So really happy with those as well. It's a really fun pattern. You know, it's bag making without having to worry about zippers or fasteners. It's great. And as you can see, you can use lots of different fabrics. So I'm really happy with those. You can find the Ujama baguette patterns on Etsy, and I'll leave a link below. And then one last bag that I made was this project bag. And one of our members gave me all these quilt panels. I love this. I mean, I know people out there in the cross-stitch community. I do what I want. I thought that was perfect. And I put some pretty little beads on there. And it has a nice lining, which if you look really closely, there's little cross stitches. I've had that fabric in my stash for ages. Finally. I don't have any quilt projects to show right now. I'm working on several, but I will put in some pictures here of some of my quilts that are hanging in our local little library. So we put up different art pieces in our library monthly, every couple of months. And this time, my quilts and another person's quilts are being showcased. So that's wonderful. It's nice to see the projects up on the wall. It's really great. So far, it seems like one of the favorite quilts is the book club quilt that I did that shows a stack of books with books that my book club has read. And I did some more quilting last week. We had an anniversary quilt for the Stephen Lewis Foundation Grandmothers to Grandmothers campaign come through to Calgary. So this quilt is to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Grandmothers to Grandmothers campaign. And it started in Ontario, where the design was made and kind of the pattern was drafted. And then it went west to BC and right to Vancouver Island, where different quilt guilds or different grandmothers groups added the base and the sprouts And then it came to us, and our job was to put half of the leaves onto the tree and make branches. And so these leaves that we were using had been sent to our foundation from members all across Canada and from Africa. And we had the joy of getting together and sewing them up. It was great. So now it has crossed all the way across Canada to Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, where they're going to continue to put the leaves on. And so it was just great. We had 2 days where we worked on putting the quilt together. The quilt top was great. It was a lot of fun. And, you know, the whole thing about a quilt bee is that you get to be together with other quilters or other people who appreciate quilts and handcrafts. So that was really lovely way to spend 2 days. So books, 2 books that I'm going to talk about today. The first one is A World of Curiosities by Louise Penny. So Louise Penny is a Canadian. She writes about a small community in Quebec called Three Pines and the people who live there, focusing on Chief Inspector Gamache and his job as sort of the head of the Quebec police force. It's more than a crime book. It's about a community, and in some ways it's kind of a magical community in that it seems that the people who need to find Three Pines can find it. So this one was very interesting. There was a lot of past and present put together. It had episodes from when Gamache was not even in the police force yet. He was emergency services and was called to École Polytech. That was a terrible episode in Canada's history. It's called, in other words, called the Montreal Massacre, where a young man went into the university, separated the men and the women students, and proceeded to shoot the women. He did not think that women should be in engineering. 16 women were killed and another 10 women injured, and some men were injured as well. So there's that past idea in the story, and how emergency services and police officers deal with that kind of a tragedy. And a crime that happened in the past comes forward into the present. The World of Curiosities is based on the Past and Treasure art piece. I like how Louise Penny always kind of puts in historical references so that you always kind of want to do a little bit of research as well. If you're a Louise Penny fan, of course, you're going to be reading it. I mean, I think this is her 18th book, and most people who, once they start, they read all 18. So something to look at. There is Netflix or Prime, Three Pines, based on these novels, and Chief Inspector Gamache. And then the other book that I read was The Moon Sister, and this is Tiggy's story. This is by Lucinda Riley. And this is the Seven Sisters series. And, you know, I had heard how popular they were, but I thought, well, this probably isn't my thing. But yeah, maybe it is, because, You follow a young woman's search to find out about her past. The sisters were all adopted by a very wealthy man who dies, and he leaves them clues to their heritage. And as you read the books, you travel all around the world, and you learn about sculpture and art and dance and music. It's really fascinating. So I will be getting the next book in the series and continuing on and enjoying them. An easy read, you know, like the World of Curiosities. It was very serious and deep. This isn't. There's always a good ending in this Seven Sisters books. All right, so I'm looking forward to a great week. I have lots of things to work on. I'm working on a quilt. I'm working on a bag. Of course, I have my cross stitch and finishes to do there. Listening to a great book in my car as I drive from place to place. I hope that you have things that are making you really happy right now as well. All right, everyone. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.